The moment is so small that most people don't think about it. You pick up your keys, maybe your bag, maybe your shoes. You move toward the door the same way you've done hundreds of times before, and somewhere behind you, without a word, your dog is already watching. Sometimes they follow you quietly from room to room. Sometimes they sit still, but their eyes track every movement. Sometimes they suddenly become more affectionate than usual, leaning in, following closer, looking up at you longer than they normally do. And sometimes, right before you step outside, they do something that makes many owners pause. They stare, or they whine, or they freeze, or they rush toward the door as if something important is about to happen. Most people explain it in simple ways. They don't want me to leave. They're being clingy. They just want to come with me. And yes, sometimes it really is that simple. But if you slow the moment down, what's happening inside your dog's mind during those few seconds may be far more complex than it looks. Because for a dog, your departure is not just a physical event. It is a psychological shift, a change in their environment, a break in routine, a moment that can affect safety, predictability, emotion, and connection all at once. And once you understand how dogs interpret that moment, you start to see that leaving home is one of the most revealing interactions you have with your dog every single day. Long before you even reach the door, your dog may already know what's about to happen. Dogs are exceptional pattern readers. They don't need words to understand sequences. They learn associations. Keys in hand, shoes on, phone picked up, certain jacket, certain time of day, certain tone of movement. Over time, these small signals become powerful predictors. To you, grabbing your keys is automatic. To your dog, it might mean you are about to disappear. And not just for a moment, for minutes, hours, sometimes longer. This is why some dogs begin reacting before you even acknowledge them. They're not reacting to your goodbye. They're reacting to the pattern that always leads to it. And once that pattern starts, their brain moves into a different mode. What happens next depends on the individual dog. Some dogs remain calm. They watch. They process. They accept. Others show mild concern, following you more closely, seeking attention, positioning themselves near the exit. And some dogs experience something deeper, a shift in emotional state that can move toward anxiety, uncertainty, or distress. But before we go there, we need to understand something important. Dogs are social animals. Their ancestors lived in groups where staying together increased survival. Movement of a key member mattered. Absence mattered. Separation had meaning. Even though your dog now lives in a safe home with no predators and regular meals, their brain still carries systems built for a different world. In that world, if a trusted member left, there were questions. Are they coming back? How long will they be gone? Is it safe to stay here? Should I follow? Is something wrong? Now place that system inside your living room. You walk to the door, you leave, you close it. And from your dog's perspective, the most important being in their environment just disappeared behind a barrier they cannot cross. Some dogs process that easily, others don't. The difference often comes down to experience, personality, routine, and emotional attachment. For many dogs, your presence acts as a form of stability, not because they are weak, but because they are bonded. You regulate parts of their environment simply by being there. Your movement predicts activity. Your presence predicts safety. Your routine predicts structure. So when you leave, the environment doesn't just get quieter, it becomes less predictable. And unpredictability is something many animals are naturally sensitive to. That's why even confident dogs often watch departures carefully. They are gathering information. They are trying to understand what is happening, what comes next, when things will return to normal. Some dogs attempt to control the situation. They follow you closely. They block the door. They try to exit with you. They jump. They bark. Not always out of panic, but out of uncertainty mixed with motivation. They are trying to keep the group together, because in their instinctive framework, that makes sense. Other dogs do something more subtle. They become unusually calm, quiet, still. They watch without moving much. This can look like acceptance, but sometimes it's simply a different coping style, observation instead of action. Then there are dogs that show signs of emotional discomfort, whining, pacing, heavy breathing, scratching at doors, waiting in specific spots, listening for sounds outside. These behaviors often get labeled quickly as separation anxiety. But not every reaction to departure is anxiety. There is a wide spectrum between calm independence and true distress. Understanding where your dog sits on that spectrum matters, because the solution depends on the cause. For example, a dog that simply anticipates your return and waits calmly is experiencing something very different from a dog that panics the moment you leave. One is attachment, the other may be distress, and those are not the same. Another layer of this moment is expectation. Dogs don't just learn that you leave, they also learn that you come back. Repetition builds memory. If departures are followed by consistent returns, many dogs develop confidence in the cycle. You leave, time passes, you return. That loop becomes predictable, and predictability reduces stress. This is why routine is so powerful for dogs. A dog that understands your schedule often reacts differently from a dog living in constant unpredictability. Irregular departures, long, unpredictable absences, sudden changes. These things can make the moment of leaving more difficult, because the dog cannot form a clear expectation of what happens next. Some dogs cope by creating their own structure. They wait by the door, they lie on your clothes, they move between familiar locations, they monitor sounds. They track time in their own way. These behaviors are not random. They are attempts to make sense of absence, to stay connected to something that represents you, to reduce uncertainty. That's why some dogs choose very specific places when you leave. Near the door, on your bed, on your shoes, near items that carry your scent. Those objects are not just objects. They are information. They smell like you. They represent presence in your absence. Which brings us to another important point. Scent. While humans rely heavily on sight, dogs rely heavily on smell. Your scent lingers long after you leave, and for your dog, that matters. It creates continuity. You are not completely gone. You are still detectable. This can be comforting, but it can also maintain awareness of absence. Depending on the dog's emotional state, some dogs actively seek out stronger scent sources when you leave. Clothing, shoes, blankets. Not because they want to destroy them, but because those items feel familiar, grounding, connected. Other dogs don't focus on objects at all. They focus on the environment, listening, watching, waiting. Each dog processes departure in its own way. Now consider what happens right after you leave. The door closes, sound changes, air movement shifts, your footsteps fade, and your dog is left in a space that suddenly feels different. Not empty, but altered. What happens next depends on what your dog has learned about being alone. Dogs that have been gradually taught independence often settle. They rest, they sleep, they engage with toys, they move between spaces calmly. Dogs that have not learned this may remain alert, waiting, monitoring, unable to fully relax. This is where problems can begin if not addressed early, because repeated experiences of discomfort during absence can build stronger reactions over time, especially if the dog never learns that being alone is safe. It's also important to understand that your behavior before leaving plays a role. Some owners create intense emotional moments at the door, long goodbyes, high energy, repeated reassurance. From a human perspective, it feels kind. From a dog's perspective, it can increase emotional intensity around departure, making the contrast between presence and absence sharper. Other owners leave suddenly with no transition at all, which can also create confusion for certain dogs. Balance matters. Calm departures, predictable routines, gradual independence. These help dogs interpret the moment as normal rather than alarming. Another factor is mental and physical state. A dog that has been exercised, mentally stimulated, and engaged before you leave is more likely to rest. A dog with excess energy may struggle to settle, which can turn departure into frustration rather than calm separation. Then there's personality. Some dogs are naturally more independent. Others are more socially oriented. Some adapt quickly. Others need more structured learning. There is no single response that applies to all dogs. But there is one consistent truth. The moment you leave is meaningful. It is one of the few times your dog directly experiences the absence of the most important figure in their daily life. And how they interpret that moment shapes their behavior more than most owners realize. If your dog watches you leave quietly, that doesn't mean nothing is happening. If your dog reacts strongly, that doesn't mean something is broken. It means something is being communicated through movement, through posture, through sound, through pattern. And if you pay attention, those signals can tell you exactly how your dog experiences your absence. So the next time you pick up your keys and walk toward the door, pause for a second. Look at your dog. Notice what they do. Do they follow? Do they freeze? Do they relax? Do they try to come with you? Because in that brief moment, before the door closes, your dog is telling you something about how they see you, how they understand their world, and what your presence means inside it. If this changed how you see your dog, subscribe to the channel and leave a comment below. What does your dog do when you leave the house? And if your dog stares into your eyes before you walk out the door, the psychology behind that behavior is even deeper than you think.